So how do you want to start this?
With just an introduction.
Another day, walking in circles, haunted by memories. I push on this wheel, I pray to climb.
Welcome back, everybody, to season 3 of the B-roll on the glorious information superhighway. How the fuck you guys doing?
Yeah,
We can do that now.
this is the third season
Yeah.
with more swearing. I mean, I
110% more swearing.
considering we couldn't do it before. I actually last time when we were on, I freaked out because I said crap on the radio, and
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was like approved language for the FCC. Like,
Oh, poo.
right.
Oh, fiddlesticks.
So yeah,
$50,000
this
fine.
is us. We're coming back, doing more B movies. Gonna focus on some stuff besides horror. Gonna focus on some stuff outside of our what was our normal purview on The Wire or Boom Radio
Or
or
Radio, The Wire, whatever we ended up calling it.
whatever network we were on last time, where we just focused on
KXOU.
KXOU. That was
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
I
there
kept
we
calling
go.
it The Wire like a whole semester.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna stretch out a little bit beyond Netflix, and just kind of focus on B movies that we like and that we feel like are worth the attention of ourselves and others. So
I think we talked about doing like theme months at one point. I don't know if we wanted to
did.
abandon that idea, but like Kung Fu
no,
month.
I think we're gonna stick with it. I
Soon
mean,
as-
I think Conan has enough material, and so that's gonna be our first movie. When
Conan
we
the
said-
Barbarian.
Yeah. So Conan the Barbarian,
Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, not
Jason
Right.
what's his
Momoa,
name?
Right.
Khal Drogo for those.
Caldrogo. Cold Drogo.
No,
Well, like they people say it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. Really, it stars James Earl Jones. He's just not like. There was a typo on the poster, and they just never changed it.
You know, honestly, like Conan gets more screen time,
Yeah.
but I feel like he's more of just like he's like second fiddle to James Earl Jones, Thulsa Doom.
Right.
First
I mean,
fiddle.
it almost seems unfair to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger try to act next to James Earl Jones.
Right. So this is 1982, Conan
Yeah.
the Barbarian. I don't think that he'd really done anything before this. So it was directed by John Milius, who had done a bunch of other stuff. He did work on Jaws, Apocalypse Now, Magnum Force, Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry movie, Rome. Yeah, he wrote that scene in Jaws when they're sitting down in the boat and he's talking about the sinking of the battleship that he was on.
Oh, I love that
Like,
scene.
yeah, so apparently John Milius wrote that bit.
Really.
Yeah.
But I guess we go through a quick plot synopsis. Conan's village gets raided by Thulsa Doom. He gets captured as a boy. His mother and father are killed. And then he has to push a grindstone for 20 years. And then he becomes Arnold Schwarzenegger and goes on awesome Conan the Barbarian adventures. And that's
So-
basically the whole movie.
Do you want the IMDb official synopsis?
Yeah,
that was like the
we can go
Cliff
with that.
Notes version of the Cliff Notes.
Right. A vengeful barbarian warrior sets off to avenge his tribe and his parents, whom were slain by an evil sorcerer, and his warriors when he was a boy. It needed commas. There were no commas in that, by the way. Which I think is like a way better description of what actually happens than what actually happens.
Right.
Because I think, like, having read a good chunk of the Conan stories, I don't think it ever really directly addresses, like, his origin, aside from he's from Samaria, and that's why he's a badass.
Yeah, because they go through it more in the 2009 version. It was 2009, right?
I believe it was 2011.
11. Yeah, the 2011 version has like an origin story for him, and I don't know if that was an actual like first little boy Conan story or if that was something unique to the movie, but
Right.
uh,
So, I had not seen this all the way before,
mhm.
despite having being way more familiar with the written material. And Justin, I know you've seen it like all the
So,
times.
several
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
Yeah, you probably would know more than like have that weird like I know way more about this than I really should because I never read something. I just have absorbed the show, the movie, the other movie, and did a lot of reading for the MMO.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, that was an MMO. It
Yes, and
was.
it's actually a pen and paper RPG coming out on Kickstarter right now that I just sponsored.
Oh, nice.
It's an officially backed Robert E. Howard, um, Conan the Barbarian role playing game, so I'm excited about that.
All the barbarians.
Right. So, looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger's IMDb page,
Uh-huh.
um, Conan the Barbarian was 1982, and his first accredited role was 1970.
Huh.
So that was 1970 Hercules in New York. He played Hercules. Uh, in
That.
1973, The Long Goodbye,
Mhm.
um, which he was uncredited. Oh, I guess he was uncredited in that, but somebody added him in because they recognized him. 1974, Happy Anniversary and Goodbye, a TV movie.
Mhm.
1976, Stay Hungry. 1977, an appearance in an episode of a TV show, The Streets of San Francisco. 1977 again, another TV show. 79, a movie called The Villain. He played Handsome Stranger. He played a character called Lars in Scavenger Hunt. Um,
A name that
1980.
will come to define many things like that. There's a Lars in every movie subsequently from him.
Right. Um, in 1980, he played Mickey Haggerty in the Jane Mansfield story, and then
So,
finally, I believe he had his starring role in Conan the Barbarian.
wow, so he hadn't really done anything
I
since
think,
Conan.
right? I think Conan the Barbarian is probably his first starring role. Did you
When
guys catch?
when
Who was
was
Running Man
Terminator?
in that?
Yeah.
Um,
I thought Running Man was supposed to be one of his big breakouts.
um,
Another
so
movie starring him and his workout buddies.
so Conan the Barbarian in '82, Conan the Destroyer in '84, the Terminator in 1984,
Oh.
Red Sonja, which is part of the Conan verse,
Mhm.
in '85, Commando in '85, Raw Deal in '86, Predator in '87, Running Man in '87.
Huh. I thought Running Man was much earlier in his career.
You thought like an idiot.
Well, I guess we're going to just set the tone with that then, aren't we?
All right. That's
We've been
No,
recording for 10 minutes and already Andrew's being a douche. A new personal best.
that I held off that long.
Right. Also, like we were talking earlier the other day, did not realize that was Peter O'Toole that played his father in this one.
what?
Let me, before I stick my foot in my mouth.
No, is that not Peter
Conan,
O'Toole?
no, that's
No.
William Smith.
No.
You lied to me.
I did.
William
It's Ron Perlman
Smith.
in the new one, though, which that's
It
fun.
is. Who doesn't look like he did anything of any true note.
Besides being
Oh.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's kind of father.
Right.
Not Peter O'Toole, apparently.
However, Max von Sydow is King Osric.
Yeah, that was one of the big, like,
And I was
kind of
pretty
sideways big names at the time.
I was pretty sure it was him when I saw it. I was like, that's Max von Sydow. And it totally was. Who I don't know if he was like as big a star, but he was certainly like a way bigger star than Schwarzenegger at the time. Like he was in Dune in 1984. He was in Dreamscape in 1984. Let's see. Flight of the Eagle, 1982. He was in Flash Gordon in 1980.
Flash. Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was right. That was it.
Just like that. But yeah, he's basically in a movie every year from like 1950, 1951, all the way until 1990.
Wow.
1990.
That is an amazing
97,
consistent.
2004, 2005. Holy shit, he's basically been in a movie a year since 1950. Like,
Wow.
almost.
That is an impressive resume.
Yeah.
Well, when you take everything that comes along.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a different mentality among older,
Kind of those character actors from the studio era.
just older Hollywood. I mean, Akira
Yeah.
Kurosawa made a ton of movies in his lifetime. Charlie Chaplin made a bunch of movies in his lifetime. I think just that there's an older Hollywood mentality.
Yeah, because it was all about not necessarily making. It was just like cranking it out to get it to the theaters and like
Right.
doing 2 scripts a week and all that.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a much shorter process the farther back you go. So there's obviously Mako, who's in it, who is the voice of Aku in Samurai Jack,
Ah, cool.
and just a fantastic voice actor in general.
And at any time you pretty much needed a Japanese man. He was Admiral Yamamoto in the Pearl Harbor movie.
Right.
And I think his last role was he was Splinter in the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series when he passed away.
Wow.
Right. I mean, really iconic. I'd say probably the only other people that are as iconic, probably Pat Megiddo, from Karate Kid. I really hope I'm not Peter O'Tooling this. So Vincel, had you seen it before? Pat Morita, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's-
Just because this is one of my roommates is a really big Conan the Barbarian fan, and one of the days when he gets off work and it's like just
Every Tuesday.
yeah, just us sitting around and we're just like, hey, want to watch a movie? And if we're not like marathoning some stupid Nickelodeon game show from the 90s, Legend of the Hidden Temple, Red Jaguars for life.
Don't talk shit about Legend of the Hidden.
Silver Snakes or Get the Fuck Out.
Yeah, or he would like think up some weird cult movie. Like that's how we got on to like marathoning all the Hellraiser sequels.
Right.
And
I'm
that's
still
how-
on number 4, by
Yeah.
the way.
We got to number 1, got through 2, and then skipped straight to 7, the last one. Because it was
Honestly,
it was like 3 a.m, and we were just like, hey, let's just laugh at it for 20 minutes, and then we were kind of impressed.
and then go to bed.
Yeah.
I think 4 is worth watching, honestly. Because 3 is worth skipping over. There's some kind of cool elements in there, because, like, for whatever reason, Pinhead is embedded in a statue, and that never gets explained, but that's kind of okay.
Yeah, I'm told actually, like, Hellraiser, the sequel, like, the farther you go into the sequels, like, the quality goes down. And, like, once you get to, like, 5 or 6, like, it's not really worth it.
I think 4 is actually more interesting than 3. Just because the story is more interesting. Like, the joke is, like, once your horror franchise has exhausted all of its possibilities, like, then it goes to space, like
Go to space.
Jason or Leprechaun.
Gosh.
Right, so that might be worth a look at some point. But
The entirety of the Hellraiser series?
Oh yeah, that. But Leprechaun or the Jason.
Leprechaun as well. Yeah.
Aliens.
But
Aliens.
I feel like the Hellraiser franchise actually makes a really good case for it going to space, because in that same movie they also start in France in like the 1700s, and then also touch on like modern times and kind of do this. I think it's called Bloodline. So they talk about like the bloodline, and it's actually kind of an interesting story.
Yeah,
So-
and I mean, like, I guess out of all of those like slasher villains, Pinhead would be the most likely to show up on a spaceship, as opposed to Jason.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not terribly likely, but like he's essentially immortal, so
Right. So this movie that we're watching,
oh yeah, Conan the Barbarian, right?
the Barbarian.
He would probably just put Pinhead in a chokehold and become
Right.
the master of hell.
So one of the things that I noticed. So this is my first viewing, and what I noticed is that Arnold doesn't have dialogue for the first 45 minutes of the film.
No, doesn't really say or yeah.
In fact,
just
the
kinda
first
there.
thing that I remember him doing is going, "No,
They are
no, no," in the fighting pit, like as
Right.
he's just getting his ass beat. And it's really funny, like just
Yeah.
because like that's what people make fun of him for, and then
And
it
he's just
starts
actually
off-
doing it.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I notice about this film is they were not overly concerned with the audio matching what was happening on screen.
No, this very much felt like kind of those spaghetti westerns where like they film everything in Italy and they get a whole bunch of like non-speaking actors or non-English actors,
Right.
and then they just kind of sort of match up the lips.
Right. I mean, this did have some connection with Dino De Laurentiis, who was kind of a prolific producer at the time. Got a lot of stuff made. So, so that's not far out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What was some notable things on your viewings?
I really liked, actually, besides everything else James Earl Jones does, I like that just kind of magic in this universe is just like really low key, but also just has this very sinister edge to it. Like, it's not like, because Conan the Barbarian obviously was a big inspiration to stuff like Dungeons and Dragons. And it's kind of weird because it's such low-key magic as opposed to what usually happens in Dungeons and Dragons. Instead, it's like, you know, I turn this snake into an arrow as opposed to fireball.
Right. And Justin and I were talking about the magic in this one versus the second one, because in the second one, it's like it's way
A bit more
overboard.
rampant.
Yeah, and I think that plays to the film's detriment. Like I think having it low key, like it is,
Yeah, it's very,
does the film some favors.
I thought it helped the like just make the character a little more sinister, because a lot of it was also around snakes, right? Like all of his magic was based on snakes and corruption and coercion.
Right.
Well then, like further nerddom in that is he was a priest of Set. Like
Right. Yeah.
that was their
Oh, right.
big snake nihilism thing. Yeah, me and Andrew were talking about the same thing with the magic, and in the Destroyer, it does get a little out of hand with like for some reason Mako has to have a Jedi mind battle with a door and another guy on the other side, and there's not really a point to it besides Mako actually does some magic and has a neat hat.
Uh-huh.
I feel like
And
these ones were. Oh, go ahead.
And it's just so like downplay. Like Mako's not actually performing magic. He's just like putting his hands together and going. "Grrr." And it's so yeah, it's so ridiculous that it just it really like takes away from this. From the magic and from the mood. It just makes it feel like cartoony and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Where like in this one, it's almost more deliberate. Like
Yeah.
when James Earl Jones turns into a giant snake and then leaves, I thought that was one of the best scenes in the film.
And it's kind of one of those that'll stick with you. It's
It's
even
so
even 80s
weird.
sci-fi. It's that, like, not 80s special effects. It has that, just like, because that's the first time you actually see magic in the show.
Yeah.
Movie. Like
Yeah,
for a long time you think he's a cult leader. He's not actually, or at least I got the impression he's not actually. He's charismatic, but he's not actually magical. And then you see that happen, and it's like, well,
Oh, he's actually magic.
you're right.
It kind of reminded me of, again, kind of going back to Hellraiser. It was like the first scene where like the guy in Hellraiser like reforms himself from like the heart that's hiding under the attic.
Right.
Like it was one of those very striking scenes, and
That they didn't have a lot of money to do.
Yeah.
So it's more subdued. Yeah.
but like it just works really, really well.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, not to go too far afield, but I feel like in the second Hellraiser movie, they do an even better job of that.
Oh, with like the bloody mattress and
When
the
she comes out of the
Yeah.
mattress and just tears that dude apart, like, it's so striking.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the wrong movie for this week.
And something interesting, I just looked it up. The first edition of Dungeons and Dragons came out in 1974.
74. Okay.
So a full
when
decade.
when did AD&D come out?
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the one with the devil on the cover.
The
It is
devil
actually
hanging out on
about
the
to come
cover.
out. It is its 30th anniversary, I think, this week.
Wow.
1977 is when it was
Really?
published. Let's see.
Maybe Dungeons and Dragons. Well, no, because I get like the stories were for Conan were out way before, but
So I want to say they were published in the 30s.
yeah, because like the guy who wrote, I know this, the guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian was good friends with H.P. Lovecraft.
Robert
and,
E. Howard.
Yeah, there's a story where Conan fights like Cthulhu or something close to that.
If you read a lot of strange fiction from the time, there's a lot of like they shared a lot of work. So there's another author named Clark Ashton Smith, who did a lot of the same, like swords and sorcery, kind of time before time, and there's some shades of Conan in there as well.
There was, and this might just be an urban legend, but I had thought that the author of Conan believed that, like, the ghost of King Conan threatened to kill him in his sleep if he didn't write these stories.
I don't
Anyone
know.
Anyone
that
else
for
ever
sure.
heard that one?
I've heard that, but considering the stories were written like over a long period of time, I believed it when I first heard it because it just sounded awesome. But I don't think that that's true. It may have happened like once or twice, because I'm pretty sure Howard was at least a little unstable.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
It sounds fun.
Right.
Yeah, kind of back, like, it's a major plot. A little kid running through the woods. His dad teaches him the riddle of steel, which is like the inside nerd joke for anyone who's ever played a barbarian D&D.
Wait, maybe I missed it, or like got up and went to the bathroom, or crunched too loud on my nachos. What was the answer to the riddle of steel?
The answer is what James Earl Jones gives him before he has him crucified. That steel is strong, but flesh is stronger.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Flesh is strong, boy.
Okay.
Watch her make
Contemplate
this
this
girl commit suicide.
on the tree of woe.
So something that I noticed markedly, and this is like I think the difference between like the 70s and now is like if you look at Conan now, right? All of like the men and women that are like half naked or full naked basically look like models.
Yeah.
And then like the people that are naked in Conan the Barbarian in 1982 or 84 just look like people.
I think there was a lot of hippie analogy. Like, this movie couldn't help but make a comment on hippies
Right.
and the followers of Thulsa Doom, and that's kind of where That came in.
Right. But in general, like, just the quality of, like, people, like, they didn't look like Sports Illustrated models.
Which is maybe a little out of place. Could be like argued as being a little out of place in a Conan movie, since Conan is like the male power fantasy personified.
Yeah. I honestly, I just chalk it up to the time.
Yeah, probably.
It's really what I think it is. But I just thought that was interesting as I was watching. I was like, none of these people
really
make me feel like super inferior about myself.
Except
I'm sure when I watched like the 2011 Conan the Barbarian, like everybody's just gonna be ripped to shit and just look amazing.
I've seen all of 45 seconds of the 2011 movie, and yes, the answer is yes, you will feel inferior. Especially to the guy they got playing Conan. Holy shit.
Jason Momoa, yeah.
Is he who they cast to play... Sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
Is he who they cast to play Shadow in American Gods?
I don't know the answer to that.
To IMDb?
I hear he's actually a really lovely man. He's just kind of thick.
Just, unfortunately, like, gigantic.
In the head.
Oh.
What?
Like, thick in the head.
Yeah.
American Gods. The only person cast is a man named Ricky Whittle, who is going to play Shadow.
Okay, so it's not him either.
Mm-hmm.
We're really not on point with this right now.
Yeah. What happened to Jason what else has Jason Momoa been in? I've heard the name before. I don't...
He was Khal Drogo in the Game of Thrones.
Oh.
He was Conan the Barbarian.
Which are kind of basically the same roles.
He was in Stargate Atlantis. He's going to be the new Aquaman.
That's where I've heard it.
Which I'm curious. I think
Aquaman's going to be ripped to shit.
Well, Aquaman's always been ripped.
That's true.
But I think if you do Aquaman right, it could be like the most badass comic book movie, just depending on how you do it.
Well, I mean, he's like the king of the sea.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that is some hail outside.
Yes. Yeah, it's really coming down. So.
Woo! Hang on, I'm gonna open my window real quick. No, I mean like open the blinds. I'm not actually open my window. That would.
Don't do it, Vincel. You have so much to live for. We interrupt this conversation about Conan the Barbarian to listen to hail.
Bring you hail. Yeah.
Something that I pointed out with Justin is that he actually punches a camel in the head. Like, he hits the camel.
Wait, when does that happen?
In kind of in the beginning when they get to town, and they like. I just love the lackluster of like, we're traveling, but it's just like two dudes like walking across the screen.
We're travel buddies. Yep.
Right.
Walking along.
Which I just thought was funny, but no, that when they first show up, and so Justin was telling me that there's a dude like banging a llama or something in a tent, and that's what they're laughing at when they walk by.
Oh yeah.
Which also made it into the MMO.
Oh, it did?
Really?
Yeah. Huh. There is a town where you can encounter, and there is a dude.
Yeah.
Banging a llama. There's no other way around. There's not a euphemism for that. It's literally what he's doing.
Right. But no, so he punches a llama in the head. And you can't do that now.
No, that would be a horrible. That would just get your movie shit canned.
And then he does it again in Conan the Destroyer. He punches a horse out.
Well, and then he punches that same camel out because his little thief buddy, who I think is meant to be the same guy, even though he's not, he's like, hey, like, do you remember that guy? Or I think you owe somebody an apology or something. And Conan's like, I'm sorry about the before. And then the camel like spits on him, and then he like punches the camel out as he rides by on the horse. I was like, what is this mess?
The movie kind of suffered from it's like, let's reference ourselves. I mean, the Destroyer, like, it turns into like there's Conan the Barbarian. It's like, okay, there's Conan, and there's Subutai, his little archer buddy. He's a fine character. And then Valeria, the love interest, Valkyrie woman. But then Conan the Destroyer just turns into like Conan and his best pals go on an adventure.
Go on awesome barbarian adventures.
It descends into what D&D is like.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good setup for a party, like you guys meet up in a bar and then become best friends forever.
Yeah, it's like so Conan the Barbarian is what most games maybe start as, and Conan the Destroyer is what they turn into.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I finally figured out how to cast spells with my wizard.
I actually really liked how he met Subutai in the first one.
That's the guy. That was the one in the desert, right?
He's chained up for
Yeah.
wolves. Is his...
Yeah, because he's a thief. And so, I don't know. I just thought that was like a clever way to introduce the characters. He's basically just screwed unless Conan sets him free, and then they just kind of become friends. And then, okay, so there's this awesome like moment where they're both acting like 12-year-old boys, and they're like, "My God is the four winds," and then Conan's like, "Crom could totally kick the four winds' ass," and then Subutai is like, "Crom lives beneath the winds and the earth. He's an idiot." Like, just this like 12-year-old moment of like, my God's better than your God.
My dad could beat up your dad.
Basically, that's what that conversation was. Like, I'm sure it was meant to be more, but it wasn't.
I don't know. I found that conversation as amusing. Like it's kind of the Conan universe is kind of set up like, well, life sucks and life is horribly brutal, and hey, you're not dead yet.
Yep.
Argue about whose dad can beat up whose dad.
I like when he's like bracing for that like group that's gonna come. This is some powerful ones. I like when he's like bracing for that group that's gonna come and try and take him after he steals the snake stone, I believe, and like he's praying to his god, and like he caps off the prayer with, "And if you don't let me win, then to hell with you."
Right.
So that's a fun bit. Let me tell you about the lore. Crom is not a god whose attention you want.
Right.
The Sumerian kind of belief in life is that when the gods made you, they gave you enough strength to handle anything that came your way. There's no reason to pray, and even then when you pray, you get their attention. And like, Crom isn't the god that you go over to his house and be like, "Hey Crom, can I have some sugar?" Like, Crom will call the police on you on his porch. And then he just comes out of his house dressed as a police officer and beats your ass. Like, so it's really kind of out of character for a Sumerian to even pray. But that's part of the Conan character, is that he's not, like, he was only raised a Sumerian briefly before he became a slave, so he doesn't quite, like, he knows Crom is his god.
He doesn't really know who Crom is or how to actually go about.
But that's really only in the films. Like, anytime it comes up in the books, he's just like, anytime gods come up, because it's like, well, recognize that there's like a bunch of different gods. And people are like, "Conan, who do you pray to?" He's like, "I don't pray to anybody. I just like Crom, because Crom's awesome, and he doesn't give a shit." Like, kind of the weird gothy answer.
Right.
His relationship with Crom is the way that you're like your dad that wasn't around much when you grew up. Like, you know, he paid child support, but you're still mad at him.
Mm-hmm.
But you're
I
not going
always
to call
thought
him.
that, like, I don't know. I always felt that Conan respected Crom, basically because Crom didn't care. Crom doesn't care. Like,
Yeah, he's not going to baby you through life. Just do whatever. I don't care.
Crom don't give a fuck.
and I think that appeals to like the independent nature of a barbarian and Conan. So, I think it's very interesting, especially because like a lot of, I mean, besides Robert E. Howard's like penchant for writing tons of racist stuff, a lot of it
Yeah, he
has to
does
do
that.
with like, I mean, they all did at that
Yeah.
time, but like, it's a lot of like frontier life, and he even wrote like historical fiction frontier books about people making it on the frontier and like fighting Indians and doing that kind of a thing. I don't know where I was going with it. Oh, just basically all of his characters are like super independent, and like that's their defining feature.
So
And
kind
that's
of like, so maybe a lot like some of Tolkien's characters then.
No, well,
I can't really speak to that, but like Howard's characters generally share two characteristics. One, that they're like super independent, and then in Conan's case, like Conan is almost a Mary Sue for Robert Howard himself, and that like anything that Robert Howard is frustrated with, like in the civilized world, like Conan basically makes fun of it.
And punches it in the face.
And punches it in the face, or basically like, why are we
Robert
doing
Howard
this?
hated
Like,
horses.
but yeah,
Just mounts in general.
yeah, basically. But I don't know. So that's just an interesting bit of like he used his characters to kind of make commentary about how like the civilized world doesn't really make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this
Yeah.
is, I think, like, didn't him and Nietzsche have like quite a bit of just like this? Like, you choose to be great. You're the Ubermensch.
Right.
Der Ubermensch.
I don't know about that, but
Well, you know, of course, there's the rampant racism.
right.
Whole thing
So-
there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. What other impressions did you guys have?
I find
Sorry,
it.
go ahead.
I find it interesting that Conan didn't really seem to have. He sort of had a love interest in the Valkyrie chick, but at the same time, he also bangs like 3 other women in this movie.
Before he meets her, though,
Yeah, that's because his romance with her is a major driving point in Conan the Destroyer.
which doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the character, yeah,
Get it? You're obsessed about your waifu.
right. I mean that's kind of a gripe for another time, but
Yeah.
not a
Next
whole lot.
on.
The B-roll.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a character like he. Great, let's do a running tally of who all Arnold banged in this movie.
The
starts off
succubus.
with the woman when he was a slave that he was bred with,
Uh-huh.
because they talk about
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and they send him to a really nice school.
Again, I hate his backstory in this. I just think it's so dumb.
And they
What?
set him free.
Pushing a grain wheel for 20 years and then becoming a barbarian and then
Right.
just kind of getting out.
On the wheel's
Yeah.
supposed to be a symbol of the school. Like, he is wearing the necklace of the school for a lot of the movie, which is the wheel / the circle of chaos.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I
Yeah.
didn't either.
Pretty much up until he switches it out for the snake icon that he finds in the snake pit.
Right.
That's what
All
he.
that sweet loot.
Right. Can I sell this? Sell that?
Taking a +1 flaming longsword.
The Atlantean sword from Atlantis.
Haha.
Is that what it was?
Yes, that is
Ah.
the backstory to that sword. Is it is Atlantean made.
So
Wait,
it makes sense that
Is that in the film, or is that something from somewhere else?
I don't think that's just unique to the film. I haven't read a whole lot of the background of it, but I think that's what it's supposed to be. Is that that's why it's still shiny after being in a tomb. That's why the skeletons are supposed to look kind of giant. Because those are that's where it doesn't Mako use that to frame it in the narrative, like after the fall of Atlantis, but before the rise of the sons of Arius.
Yeah. So he opens up with the monologue, Conan, which is I loved his opening lines. Like I thought it was a perfect way to frame it. But he opens up with, between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And it says, like, unto this Conan destined to wear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. I really like how when they ended the film and rolled credits, it just showed him, like, in a dimmed room, like, sitting on the throne with a crown on. I thought that was a really sharp way to do it, and they probably should have began the film just with that, like with that image of him sitting on the throne.
That's one of those iconic things that you'll see like parodied and referenced now. Like it's so common it references itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was. I mean, it was even the beginning of Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Yeah. Oh, Conker's Bad Fur Day. That was...
And Mako narrates everything.
So yeah, I feel like there's a lot. I definitely, so far from what I've seen of the second one, because I bought the 2-disc edition, the only copy they had at Hastings, like the local book and movie store, and it had just been sold back like it was a used copy. So they had several copies of the 2011 one.
Yeah, I think that one didn't really... It didn't really do that well, I suppose. I remember right. Or like it did okay, but like it wasn't.
It did not do well.
Yeah, it's
very
like,
poorly received.
And I hear mixed opinions about it at best. And like I haven't watched, but I know it's definitely one of the. It's not quite as memorable or cool as the older ones.
I think
Right.
they tried to make it more. I don't want to say edgy, but like it's more gory and it's more brutal, and it's like, but where's
Right.
James Earl Jones?
Like I feel like when people do that, like they try to make it like more grim dark and more gritty. It's like we just added more decapitations and boobies, and that's not really.
And I can get that almost anywhere on the internet these days.
Yeah, there's plenty
Right.
of it in Conan.
That's not really like what makes the series like interesting or cool, despite being a big part of it. So.
I will throw out. Let's see. I'll do my best to do a brief synopsis. Not quite the Cliff Note version. So, grows up a slave, becomes a gladiator, is freed from being a gladiator, so he doesn't. Kind of hinted at he was getting to the point they were afraid he was going to kill his owners. Meets up with his little archer buddy, is a thief. Meets up with Valeria, a blonde woman. They rob a temple of Set because they're just being jerk adventurers who rob
Murder
stuff.
hobos.
Well, that's
Murder
actually
exactly.
That's fairly close to the first Conan story, where he robs a tower, and I think it's arguably one of the best Conan stories.
Huh.
I think it's called the Tower of the Elephant.
Hey.
Yeah.
Nope.
I thought that was a drum roll for a second. Like, is there a joke here? Tower of the Elephant?
Yeah.
Nope.
That's
It's just the rage of Thor outside.
right.
Yeah, that's pretty much basically transposed. It's a Tower of Set. Like, it's no Tower of Snake People.
Yeah, right. Which I really felt like was lifted from that first short story, and I think it's good material, and I think it's a good opening to the character, and I kind of wish that's where we would have started with Conan in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Is him and the guy that I just forgot his name.
Mako?
No,
Subutai.
Subutai. Mako plays the wizard.
Right,
I think he's just called the wizard, actually. But yeah, I wish we would have just opened with them breaking
robbing a temple.
So
Yeah, because it definitely, because like Conan is just mostly a collection of short stories, and it would I think probably just be a very good way to introduce who Conan is without having all of this origin story, which I guess maybe people feel they needed to have in the movie because people probably didn't know who Conan was.
right.
But like, yeah, I feel like it would have been like maybe a really effective way just to establish who Conan is. It's just, this barbarian dude who rolls around the desert, kicking in doors and taking loot and banging women.
Right, and I mean that's kind of the thing about Conan and the stories is that like he's a barbarian. He just takes what he wants. So it's a lot of. I mean, if we're looking at it in like Dungeons and Dragons like stereotypes, he's almost a rogue.
Yeah, very
Like
much so.
he's more of a warrior rogue than he is a barbarian.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stealth. There's a lot of him sneaking around, and a lot of him just chopping heads off. Like a lot of Conan stories are just like 30 pages of build up, and then he just cuts the monster's head off, and then that's the end. I kid you not.
Yeah.
It's actually, if I recall, they kind of talk about a lot of different archetypes that he has been in his fighting style. The one you're kind of seeing in the movie is the Reaver,
Okay.
like where he's like the halfway between rogue and barbarian. Like he'll still murder people, like he'll do it with a two-handed axe, but he'll sneak around.
Right.
It's like a very kind of...
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the different styles of fighting that we were seeing, like because there was a whole mishmash of sword styles.
Right, which they do kind of have to explain with the pit fight. We're like, oh, he learned martial arts here, and like they did have a weird with like they felt the need to explain away that he's not just naturally good at this swordsman style. Like, no,
He's
he's
just good at stabbing people.
comes naturally. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I mean, even that break into set kind of does that, where it's just a whole bunch of build up, a whole bunch of sneaking around, and then Conan just kind of decapitates the snake guardian, and then they bamf off.
which is a lot of D&D. Like,
Yeah, mostly.
I think I found that part of the movie the most enjoyable, like the whole breaking.
Yeah, it was so
template
cool.
set, like the whole thing with the snake. I feel like the music in this movie did a lot to like build the mood. It was for a lot of parts where you think it would be a lot of build up. There was actually a lot of slow music, and then it would kick it up a notch, like at weird times.
it just what was Basil
Rathbone?
No,
Oh.
Polydorius.
Polydorius? Yeah, we were trying to remember what the composer's name was.
Oh, composer. No,
Yeah.
that's
And
way
yeah,
off.
like this movie is kind of like Star Wars, where for one, the earlier you see it, the more you have like an affection for it. But how much the music is really a mood set, like
Right.
But
Yeah, and it's super iconic as well. Like, I don't know. Like, you could probably play it for somebody now, and it would sound familiar. In that way that all music, like epic fantasy music, kind of does.
because of so much of it comes back to Conan the Barbarian.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I feel like there was a major like tone set with this movie.
With the high adventure and memorable tunes.
Yeah, and thunder that sets my car alarm off.
Oh,
Oh,
my.
good.
All right, I'm just gonna mute myself.
But yeah, I think really, because the whole reason I watched, my roommate and I watched Conan the Barbarian was basically we were talking about Pathfinder D&D, and then basically we were talking about movies like that, and then eventually it just went to Conan the Barbarian because that is just how that happens. And really, the movie does feel like a particularly epic 2 or 3 sessions of like AD&D, with
Right.
just with the way everything's set up, the way everything builds up, the way it gets a little just crazy at times you wouldn't expect it to,
Right.
and
I
that
think
and how there is a little edge of anticlimax with some of the monsters, how they're fought and everything. It's just
Right.
I'm gonna stab it in the head.
yeah.
When you're-
I go to
when
stab it in the head, triple crit.
When your warrior somehow goes first and then
Yeah.
like crits the monster, and then everybody's just kind of left with their dick in their hands, like, well, sure glad I came tonight to do nothing.
Or the first thing he does is like knock it down, and everyone just stands around and like this guy is like the big bad like evil necromancer, like biggest baddest like, but he's
Yeah.
still a nerd, and you just knock him down, and everyone just stomps on him.
Right.
Or the
Like, that was an
barbarian,
ignoble end to a
the barbarian silence spell, otherwise known as a chokehold.
right. Someone once, I think it was Matt Buell, if you remember him. Of course you do. I'll go ahead and plug him if we plug things. The owner of Luton XP in Norman.
Oh,
made a joke about the final scene where Conan confronts Thulsa Doom
Yeah.
right before the mass execution, and just described it as trying to use charm on the barbarian after he's already raged.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way, but no, that's perfect. Also, that was a mass execution.
What was happening in that one? Remember, what is the main character? King Osric was talking about, like, the snake cults are killing their parents, killing the people around them. Thulsa Doom was basically training up his cult to go out and kill a bunch of people in that kind of name of chaos way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's that speech he's giving them about, like, with the torches of let this burn all the people in the establishment who are keeping you down. Screw those guys. They were going to disperse from there. I've always read it that they were going to disperse from there and, like, kill and burn and just generally have a good nihilistic time.
Huh. No, I think you're absolutely right.
Does Conan take over the cult?
No.
No, okay, I don't remember because I couldn't quite remember, and it kind of felt like that would be a Conan thing to do: kill Thulsa Doom and just get your own cult.
He basically tells him to go pound sand.
Yeah.
Because at the end, like, he just takes that little brazier and just, like...
And the most unnecessary hammer throw ever. That's probably my least favorite part of the movie, is that we just wrap up with, and the hammer toss, is that necessary?
As he stares her down. Like, do you remember that? Like, he's staring the princess down as he's doing the weird hammer toss thing?
And this isn't a metaphor.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
I did love the big conflict, or the big battle right before he does the whole, the prayer thing, which is still kind of a neat prayer in movies. That's one of my favorite parts, where it's just like two stood against many, big fight. Mako's even amusing in there. I think the most laughs are right there, where Mako almost dies, and I did it with my spear.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I feel like that there is kind of a weird end. Like, that's the climax of the movie, and then I'm just gonna go stab the big bad in the head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he was kind of the big bad, sort of.
Kinda, maybe.
I mean, he was a big bad in a way that, like, cult leaders are big bads. Like, they're not really the end boss.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, again, they're just nerds that you're gonna knock over.
Push down the stairs.
Right.
Give them a wedgie.
Yeah.
Hold out your hand on their face while they're doing, like, the helicopter punches, trying to move towards you.
Yeah.
I lose more liches that way.
I've done that to many of the liches on the many monks I've played.
Yeah. So. Well,
overall,
go on.
I was saying, overall, I feel like this is one of those movies that, like, it's worth the watch just because of what it is and how much it pops back up in culture. Like, the whole, like, the line, "Do you want to live forever?" was used in a...
Over and over again?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's used everywhere, and once you know what it is, it's just one of those iconic movies. If you have anything to do, like, around nerd culture, it's worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of see the genesis of a lot of things.
Yeah. But yeah, like, basically...
Conan the Destroyer is pretty good if you're drunk.
Yeah, that too. And really, it's just like, it's not like a particularly poorly made movie either. It's really pretty solid. It's got some nice special effects. It's a good story.
Right.
Basic story, but it hits all the high points.
Yeah, you're not taking one for the team just to watch an iconic movie. It's a pretty good movie on its own.
Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of fun, really.
Yeah, I do think that it is better than the second one. Mm-hmm. Just because it's so toned down in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's Conan the Barbarian. So we're going to do next time is Conan the Destroyer, I'm assuming?
We could.
Maybe?
We could also do the other Conan the Barbarian as well.
The 2011?
Yeah, I feel like that one would be we could cover that fairly quick to make it a twofer.
I'm not sure we have enough content in Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do a 2011 Conan the Barbarian
And Conan the Destroyer.
and Conan the Destroyer
And his buddy.
and his little buddy. Next time on
The B-roll.
B-roll.
B-roll.